Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Friday, March 8th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5 card spread? First card, we are starting our day off with today. It's Friday. We've got our Ace of Cups. I want everyone to everyone is just waiting to let their hair down right now. I'm not surprised to see this. We have been seeing this is one of those weeks. There's been a lot of heavy lifting that has been occurring right now, energetically and spiritually, across the entire collective. This is heavy, energetic work that has been occurring. It's not surprising right now that we're seeing that there may be a lot of energy right now that's finding themselves coming into this weekend and just not wanting to do anything but almost come into that easement or come into that energetic recovery space. This is that moment that feels like it is a emotional release, right? Being able to come into that state or space of just emotionally releasing right now is going to feel like that energetically equivalent of just wanting to effectively let your hair down. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This is potentially going to feel like some kind of energetic overwhelm that is potentially occurring today. That is potentially also due to the fact that we see that there has been this moment of trying to come into modification so much over the last few days. This has been like tightrope walking to a certain extent. This has been a lot of energetic heavy lifting. This may have been even been a lot of tangible or metaphorical clearing out or cleaning that has been happening right now. So we see that ability right now that may be feeling like the expression of some kind of spiritual or energetic exhaustion right now. This is giving some space or place of feeling that the value of partnership is having that place of energetic release. The important thing whenever we see energy and energetic release in this way is we're recognizing, and we want to focus on this because this has been coming through very, very heavily over the last few weeks, over the last week for the collective. The difference between expressing one's emotions and subjecting another to your emotions. What does that mean? That is that difficulty in experiencing and feeling something and almost allowing someone to have to be subject to what you are feeling versus articulating to someone how you are feeling, letting that be the emotional expression point. So we see even now there may be a little bit of overwhelm that is happening here. Making sure that you navigate some of this energetic trigger right now is going to be very vital and important. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency. I told you this is a heart opening exercise. So that ability, I told you there's a lot of insight. There's a lot of clarity that has potentially been arriving for a lot of the energy that is coming into the divine union frequency. It's almost that moment that you thought you entered the divine union frequency with this set of baggage, and suddenly you enter the frequency and you find that there's all this baggage that you've been carrying that you hadn't even observed because you didn't have a method of comparison to be able to observe it. So even now, that feeling that may feel like that top-bottom approach, something where, you're feeling a lot of happiness right now, but you're also feeling a lot of that heaviness, that is the energetic expression that potentially happens when you enter the divine union frequency, because it's almost that moment of recognizing the overwhelming sensation that you're finally ready to come into a space of healing, even potentially around things that you didn't recognize that you needed to heal, either via within your own self or in some of the experiences that may have led you up to the divine union. Masculine and feminine energy in separation. This is that energetic work that we see that a lot of the energy in separation is currently experiencing. Why? We keep seeing and recognizing this right now. A lot of the energy in separation is doing the hard thing, not the easy thing. That doesn't mean, and even now we see, that doesn't mean that there's energy right now that's moving into separation due to a lack of care, due to a lack of empathy. This is energetically expressing that healing gesture of someone coming into that space with a profound amount of care, a profound amount of energetic hope. And even now we see that having to navigate that space, I'm seeing even here, it almost feels like it energetically comes in waves, because it's almost that sensation in recognizing that what you're trying to restore, or the way you're moving right now, isn't due to a lack of some sort of connection here. It is trying to come into a space where that energetic connection doesn't feel like it's one that's energetically draining so much as it's one that's uplifting and nourishing. So even now, that moment or that feeling of connection, it may feel like that energetic drain is still there, but even that is the articulation of what feels like it might need to come into a space or place of remedy. Even now, we see that this is potentially other energy that is encountering and meeting each other at a moment. I told you, this energy may be saying, and this is why it's almost coming into divine union so quickly right now, I'm almost like in this emotional overwhelm. I don't know if I'm ready to meet someone new. It's like this is almost that moment that feels like that point of catharsis. You might be building that energetic catharsis with someone as you're navigating situations and scenarios. Why? Because even for the energy in separation right now, it's not due to a lack of energetic care. It's not due to a lack of energetic love. It has to do with ascertaining whether or not something can be in a state of balance, right? So even now, how is the energy in the separation that's going through some of this emotional overwhelm navigating this? Is it that overrushing outpour subjecting someone to how you are feeling? No. The energy itself is almost preventing that point of over emotionality in a space or place that they're feeling that over emotion in, because it's the question that comes forth instead saying, is the energy that I'm going to put forth to something going to create balance, or is it just going to is it going to further amplify the imbalance, right? This is maybe feeling like that moment that may feel like it's so energetically difficult because it's a connection point in feeling the emotional expression of something that you have a lot of care and attention towards, while also observing that it's not in a place that feels like it brings balance. So even now, this is a little bit of that grieving process, if you will, that some of the energy is experiencing even as they maintain and move forward in separation. Because this is almost that moment of someone feeling the weight of trying to do the right thing is oftentimes the energetically hard thing. We even see right now, there may be a lot of new energetic connections that are being established right now, amplifying and articulating that you're finding other energy that is matching you or meeting you in this same modality. Masculine and feminine energy. This is that overwhelm that is potentially experiencing if you're moving into divine union right now, because it feels like the counterpoint that what you're experiencing right now, in a way, this is why it may create that energetic trigger, as it were. If you're moving into the divine union frequency and you're feeling so positive, you're almost saying to yourself, why am I feeling so low or sad? Where is this sadness coming from if I'm moving into the divine union frequency? Because coming into the divine union frequency almost shines an even starker light in anything that was energetically imbalanced prior to coming into the divine union frequency. I told you a lot of that energetic healing only begins once you find yourself in the divine union frequency. So it's almost that moment of now feeling the full weight, like the full understanding of what felt like it was misaligned prior to this may feel like it's creating this sense of energetic overwhelm. For masculine, and I need to stress this right now, this is why I'm saying that for the masculine energy, make sure that this doesn't come into taking too much accountability of the self and what you've effectively learned about yourself prior to this moment. Remember, you can only hold yourself accountable in the moment that you recognize where that imbalance was. For a lot of the feminine energy, seeing and observing the places or spaces that you may have been trying to rectify that already had an integral imbalance there, potentially observing, trying to pull someone on your own energetic path when you were trying to lead in different directions, it creates a lot of that energetic overwhelm because it's that sense of understanding. But this is the overwhelm that facilitates healing, because an energetic imbalance that is observed is one that can effectively be healed. Masculine and feminine energy right now, coming in the heart of the divine union frequency. This has a lot to do energetically right now with a lot of that modification work that we've been effectively seeing. The work of the divine union frequency right now has almost been coming through a lot of this, like I want to say, like radio tuning, if you will, an observational point in what may have served your needs at the time that you first entered the divine union frequency versus where you find yourself now. This is the elasticity of the divine union frequency, the adaptability, recognizing things right now and almost looking and reassessing to recognize what is no longer necessary. There may be a lot of conversations right now in relationality, in the divine union frequency, of things that may have felt necessary at the time of entering the divine union frequency that you now realize may be becoming too overly energetically overwhelming or unnecessary, if you will. But even this shows the value of the divine union frequency, but because being able to identify something and say, well, we've advanced beyond that, we don't need to do that anymore, we can adjust and accommodate for that. That is that observation point that almost feels like the amplification on how much you've grown, evolved, and changed while being in that work of connectivity with counterpart energy. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here the Devil card in its reversal. We love to see this card in relationality to this right now, particularly because for the energy in the divine union frequency, this is all about that understanding and recognition of the fact that there's moments and there's times when something is helpful versus something that is unnecessary. I told you, this is a lot of that energetic spring cleaning, as it were, that is occurring right now in the divine union frequency. And this could almost be that observation point that feels in a way almost like an energetic breakthrough point, because this is almost that moment of potentially assessing and looking at something that you may have held at a higher level or degree of emotional need at the time that you entered the divine union frequency. But what is happening right now for the energy that's in the heart of the divine union frequency, something that you may have felt was necessary for emotional stability at the time that you first entered the divine union frequency, if you've evolved and grown and adapted, if you and a counterpart energy have moved in that way, you may now be looking and saying, that's unnecessary anymore. That doesn't seem like it's creating any more value for us. We can kind of, I told you, we keep getting this like training wheels effect that's almost energetically happening here and being like, oh, that's just low. That's just bearing us down right now. That's not, we don't need that anymore. We're way beyond that, right? This feels like kind of like taking like a few extra, like taking those like other speeds off of the 10 speed because you know that you can just power through on the other one, or just trying to take the training wheels off. It feels a lot like that, like energetic shedding, if you will, of the energy in the divine union frequency, looking at the fluidity, how well you're moving together to be able to recognize what doesn't feel like it's serving versus what feels like it does. So even now we see that while this may be difficult work, because it's a lot of like looking at what doesn't work right now, putting that hard gaze on something, it is doing so to come into that sense or space of energetic refinement. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency right now. This observation point on what came before is giving clarity, because I told you it's a facilitation point, and having not been able to see an imbalance the way you could until you were outside of that imbalance. The perspective of being in the divine union frequency is creating that moment that is shifting your own energetic perception. And even now we see, and this is why I want to be really careful with this. I want you to recognize and not come into a space or place that you're not heavily over judging what may have led before. What would heavily over judging look like in terms of observing things from the past? That would be masculine, putting too much of heavy guilt or blame on the past version of self that did not understand things or did not have the perception that you presently do, right? Having a level or degree of grace and empathy for that past version of you that brought you forth to your present self is vital and important at this time. Feminine energy, not looking at the energetic connections that led prior to this with a sense of blame or over judgment, recognizing that you yourself were accountable in those spaces and places in terms of accepting what you were trying to do or what you were trying to adjust, was potentially giving a lot of clear indications that there wasn't an alignment point there. That is that grace that we give ourselves that helps us come into a state or space of healing. So we see even now that these energies are potentially working through this together, right? This is that point of discernment and looking at what led before that feels like the amplification on what feels like it is so positive and restorative here. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is the energetic healing that is coming through right now for a lot of the energy that is doing this difficult path work. Because there is this observation point that a lot of the energy is potentially having right now in separation. And I'm seeing here that the best way that that can be articulated upon is the observation point of feeling or experiencing something and almost feeling that audio gesture of hearing something that feels like it's not fair, right? There could be a lot of this energy in separation right now saying it's not fair. It's not fair for me to feel what I'm feeling right now and not be able to move towards it. But it is also that decree of it's not fair that is facilitating the healing gesture, because just as we see that someone is energetically saying to themselves, it's not fair that I feel this way, they are also saying the counter gesture of it's not fair that it is not fair. Right? That what they desire and aspire to bring forth towards someone would not allow for that level or degree of balance. So even now, the ability to observe the unfairness in feeling like there's an energetic connection to something that is inherently imbalanced is facilitating the healing. Because that is that moment that is almost one affirming and saying, I am trying to bring balance to a situation or circumstance that is inherently imbalanced. That is the healing gesture that is being done in separation right now, which is moving a lot of this energy on the pathwork of deeper personal healing. Potentially meeting energy on that journey on the way. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today. 2 cards coming out for today. On the 4th card, we have here our Ace of Pentacles in combination with our Knight of Wands in its reversal. I told you a lot of the energy right now, okay, I gotta stress this. A lot of the energy right now of masculine that is doing that hard, heavy work. I told you, for a lot of the masculine energy right now that's going through this process of healing, this is that observation point of, again, for the masculine energy specifically, this is feeling like a journey of self-control over your passion center, particularly and especially if this is someone that you feel that you have this deep, passionate, energetic connection for, but you see the fact that that energy is too adaptable, too changeable, too willing to kind of break their own pathwork to be able to align with you. You can see it visibly occurring. For a lot of the masculine energy that is going through this right now, that ability of saying to oneself, I have control over my passion center. I do not want to facilitate a connection with someone unless I observe and feel like it is one that is in alignment and healing. It comes in waves. It comes in waves. You have moments that you're like, I can do this. And then you're having moments that are going, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I can't do this. So what do we see that's energetically happening right now? This is literally masculine energy right now that is going through a lot of that moment, and it can feel potentially very heavy because it feels like that necessity right now may feel like it is one of those moments that you're recognizing that your own strength in that modality, some days it's easier than others. What is the energy of the masculine doing right now to try to help with that? Practical things. They're trying to do whatever you can right now to distract from that sensation, because even now what we appreciate is, while the masculine energy may be feeling that frustration here, is this a masculine energy that's going back on their own pathwork? No. Look at this. This is some very strong masculine energy here right now, because this is the masculine energy saying, again, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this because I know that this is the right thing to do. I'm going to continue forward in this way. And this is almost masculine energy right now, putting some kind of like, I want to say, tangible work in. This could even be masculine energy, putting in some like practical plans to put themselves in right now to avoid leaving themselves, I want to say, idle, energetically idle, that would potentially call forth back a connection that they feel isn't necessarily a place that is facilitating healing. For feminine energy, this is also a moment, if you are in separation, that you are going through the same energetic moment, which is, again, you're feeling the emotional overwhelm of feeling the energetic connection, the passion connection to a masculine, but recognizing that that passion connection to a masculine energy that you're potentially trying to, facilitate a healing gesture on, this is not one of those moments that we see here that you yourself, like you're feeling the energetic connection. You're almost saying it's not fair that I feel this. But again, making that definitive choice to do what you know is the right thing instead of what may feel like that energetic or emotional movement towards the easy thing, as it were. What's the feminine energy doing right now? Not allowing themselves to come into an idle space, pushing forward, moving forward, potentially, again, just like the masculine, moving forward with tangible plans to help move past the energetic connection that they feel and recognize that it's there, but it's unfair. It's there, but it's unfair, right? That observation point is what's helping amplify making those choices that feel like they're more balanced, that feel like they're more in alignment right now. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency right now. This is that observation point of understanding on past path work that is almost requiring you not to feel the overwhelm in understanding situations and circumstances from the past on a greater degree as you move forward into alignment right now. And even now, we can almost feel like there is some kind of energy right now that is feeling that like energetic echo of the past experiences. Because again, a lot of that movement of coming into divine union, it's not like everything before you came into divine union is thrown into the waste bin. It's within you. And even now we see that some of that energetic unpacking that's happening right now, it may be feeling like there is some of that emotional conflict that rises up in terms of recalling it. But what is happening right now for the energy in the divine union? You are helping. Coming into the divine union right now, you're helping each other with it. You're seeing the tangible difference that is articulating the spaces and places in the past that had such a profound imbalance. And so even now, for a lot of that energy, that's like one of those moments that, like, when you're receiving something good, it's like when you're receiving food, it's like receiving food and receiving nourishment will harken back to every moment that you were hungry, right? When you have that moment of nourishment, there's always the echo of the amplification of the time that you were starving, right? It's always that counter song that almost comes through to a certain extent. So we see that for a lot of the energy right now that's experiencing this is almost that moment that feels, again, like that heart expanding exercise, that the presentation of what you felt like you needed and deserved from one that you're finally receiving immediately harkens back to the place that you would have desired it to come through from. For masculine, this may feel like a lot of the personal effort that you're putting forth in something now, and now asking oneself what would have happened if you were able to move in that way prior to this. For feminine, this is the feminine receiving that from masculine, that's hearkening back from all the places and spaces that they would have desired that in the past experience. That's overwhelming work, right? That's hard. That's heavy. It's energetically heavy because the moment in the present experience is hearkening back to anything that wasn't balanced. But again, it is providing a lot of insight. It is providing a lot of clarity. Sometimes it needs to hurt to heal. And we're seeing here that there's a perfect example of something that may feel like that wound is finally being cleansed, finally being healed by receiving what you know was what you were asking for in those spaces and places that you were not getting it. Masculine and feminine energy in the heart of the divine union right now. what we effectively see and recognize right now is this space where we see that you are trying to come into a point of modification, coming into a point of assessment, because what we're effectively identifying for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency is your recognition and how much you have changed, how much you have evolved since being in the divine union frequency. Your goals, your aspirations, are they the same? Have they changed? Are your manifestation goals the same? Have they changed? That observation point that you do not stay static in the divine union frequency. It is an elastic place. It is a place that has that ability to expand, to evolve, to change. This is allowing a lot of difficult conversations right now, potentially even again, observing that what you may have desired or felt like you needed at the beginning of the divine union is now shifting due to the energetic connection of two energies who have basically commingled their pathwork so much that something that you may have felt like was necessary in the past feels like it's almost an overburden or a lack of necessity right now, because that's almost that sign of saying something has energetically worked here. Like that's that moment of, again, streamlining the connection, moving in a space of trying to like come into that fluidity to allow for further points of growth. Because again, there's only so much energy that even the energy in the divine union can express. So a lot of that moves into saying what is not necessary so we can focus on what is. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, it is transverse. We haven't had transverse in a while. This type of energy is going to be very different on a case-by-case basis depending on where you are in the divine union frequency. This is why we see even now there could be something that is best articulated here in the fact, I told you, this is not easy work. This is, again, a little bit of reality check work that is happening right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union experience. This is that moment, but we also like this, right? Because this is the gift of the energy in the divine union experience. Is the divine union experience, the energy in the divine union experience, just continually, making that space or place of like illusion for each other, that positivity no matter what? No. It's moving from an amplification of really having that careful approach in terms of looking at the reality of situations and circumstances. And that's that moment that feels like the gift that you're providing each other is that level and degree of acceptance in relationality to situations and circumstances, right? This is that moment that we see that the gift of the divine union is not working from a place or space of just looking at everything with rose-colored glasses, right? There's a difference between evoking the energetic positivity in things, moving in a space where we're always trying to bring out the best, versus looking also with a level or degree of clarity at situations to be able to facilitate them getting better. And what we see that is so difficult for some of the energy right now in the divine union frequency is almost having to say something difficult to be able to make something better, right? And that's almost saying, like, I'm not saying this to like rain on your parade. I'm saying this because I want to make something better here. I want to find that way to make something better. But in order to make something better, we have to look at what's not working to make it better. We have to do that hard conversation to make it better. I told you a lot of this energy right now in the divine union frequency is moving with that level or degree of discernment, which almost says, rather take care of a small problem now than let it become a big problem moving forward. This energy is very attuned to what can happen in situations and circumstances where something is energetically left unchecked. Masculine and feminine that is coming into the divine union frequency right now. This is that moment that may feel like, again, I have to stress. I can already taste, I can like, it feels bittersweet. The energy coming into the divine union frequency, I may even be feeling like I waited so long for this. This is what I was always hoping for. Why do I feel so sad? Why do I feel so, because that's the good thing. That's the energetic signature of not moving with just like excitement, not that pop, 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 pop of like, of fear and anxiety. That is that deepening well, that anchor of certainty, that heaviness of understanding that is coming in at a time that you're also feeling some level or degree of energetic elation. That's almost amplifying the seriousness, the commitment, the resolve, the understanding, because we're almost seeing here that there's this moment for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency that you realize that once your perception shifts, you can't go back to the way you used to perceive things, right? This is almost that moment of mourning the past self, okay? And that's that place that you can hold space and say, I didn't intend to come into this frequency like that. I didn't know what it would feel like. But now that I have, I can never go back to that other place. I can never go back to not go back to that other place, but energetically, emotionally. I can never go back to thinking in that way. I can never go back to feeling in that way. Because this is that moment that amplifies, and this is the gift that is occurring for a lot of the energy that's looking back on these past situations and scenarios, which is usually best expressed in, I wish I knew now, I wish I knew then what I know now, which is actually better articulated by saying, I wish I could perceive things then the way that I perceive things now. For the energy that is in separation, one of the difficulties right now is the fact that you're not sure what's around that bend. This is that moment that feels like the amplification of someone doing the right thing and feeling awful in the process of doing it. Because this is that moment of basically looking at feeling the energetic connection towards another person or individual and saying, I recognize, I feel, I see how imbalanced this is. I even feel, potentially for feminine, I feel like I'm denying myself the passionate connection with someone that gives me joy. But it's not fair. The connection's not fair. And that's the feminine reaffirming and saying, I don't feel happy doing this. But that's also because that is sometimes how healing comes in. Healing is not an act of joy. Healing is hard. It can be very difficult, right? It's got to hurt to heal. Masculine potentially in separation right now, also moving forward in the same fashion. If there's a feminine that you feel a lot of that energetic, that passion connection with, but you feel and you see the fact that feminine energy isn't in alignment with you, feels like they're trying to conform or change too much to be with you, this is also one of those moments that says, I don't like this, doesn't feel good. I know I'm doing the right thing, but it stinks to have to do it, because this is the masculine almost feeling like you're denying yourself that passionate connection. But what is the masculine energy that's healing doing the same work, going, I need to do the right thing. I'm not going to do the easy thing, right? And even now, that's that moment that the healing is coming through, even if it is difficult. Where are these energies? These energies are literally now making plans to help divert the fact that they're moving through this moment that feels like they don't want to move forward. Like they're feeling like this is a lot of energy being like, I'm putting myself forward right now. I'm putting myself out there, even though it's the last thing I want to do. Because this is almost the energy saying, I feel like I have to do something here. I can't just stay. This is why. It's almost saying, I can't stay here. If I stay here, I'm going to go back to that. This is almost the energy recognizing and saying to themselves, if I just leave myself idle in this moment, it's going to make it even more difficult not to continue forward in that connection. So we see that a lot of the energy right now, what's it doing? Putting forward plans right now to be able to distract away from moving in a directionality that they know doesn't serve their highest sense of purpose. As I said, very strong possibility that a lot of energies are going to be encountering each other in this modality. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ace of Cups in its reversal and our Justice card in its reversal. Heavy cards. One card to clarify, please. This is it. This is like that energetic clearing out of the cycle, though. This is that moment. And even now, for the energy that's doing this work, this is why, because it does feel like that moment that almost feels like an energetic grieving process, if you will. Because I have to stress that for some of the energy that's going through this modality right now, it's not due to the desire or the lack of desire in wanting a result or an outcome with another energy. It's more accepting the reality of the present and asking oneself if you see the possibility of something moving into a healing gesture at this time, or if the only way to potentially facilitate a healing gesture is to allow for some sort of energetic closing out of a cycle. And so we see and recognize here that for a lot of the energy going through this right now, it feels awful. It feels frustrating. It feels terrible, because this is almost that moment of someone, again, feeling the amplification of what they aspired and desired versus what they're realistically seeing. But even now, there is that modality or that hope that almost amplifies and says, do you see this healing gesture that's occurring through this right now? Which is, if I let them go, if I let this end, that is the only hope in potentially having someone come back healed that will allow that ability to be able to potentially build forth, right? This is almost that moment of saying, I need to allow the cycle to close in order for any possibility of something potentially productive coming back forth with this energetic connection. And what's so difficult about that is it feels like and it's one of those endings that feels so so profound, because you cannot be certain that someone is going to come back in that healing gesture. They could stay that way. They could stay in that modality like perpetually, right? That is that difference that we almost say to someone like, I hope you heal, but it is not my responsibility to try to heal you if you don't think you need to be healed. And so why we see this right now is that's that energy saying, like, again, the feminine energy going, I feel the connection. It's not fair that I have to release the connection, but the connection itself isn't fair. It is the nature of the connection. I need to break this cycle for both of us, for the sake that there may be something better on the other side. That may even include that person, if we can both facilitate and come into that space of healing. For masculine, this is the same thing. This is masculine, potentially, if you're seeing a feminine that feels like they're coming too much into a state of emotional overwhelm. You're almost seeing a feminine that would let themselves go into some kind of energetic emotional collapse to be with you. This is the masculine looking at the feminine and saying the feminine is too adaptable. The feminine's isn't staying on their pathwork enough. I need to do this for the sake of the feminine, and helping them recognize and identify that, I want to facilitate that point of being able to heal with them. And hopefully, if we're not on the same path, helping them find their path does not mean that our paths might not cross again someday. Now is just not the time. So even now, this is one of those moments that there's a lot of grief, and because saying to oneself, I hope that will happen, but I have no ability to know that will happen, feels like that point of energetic closure. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency. The minute that you come into the divine union frequency, you suddenly realize that your own perception on things has shifted profoundly. You see things from a different optics now. And that moment, that morning of the self, is almost the morning of the way that you looked at things prior to coming into the divine union connection. And even now we see, if that's the energy that feels positive but also feels low, that's because that is the effective energetic release process of the past version of self. So for masculine, this is I can never go back to being that person. Even if I moved away from this now, I would never see things in that way. This is that gift of maturation that often is characterized by a feeling of completion or an ending. For feminine, this is that deepened understanding that may feel like a grieving process in a lot of the past connections, when you fully embrace and understand why those alignments weren't there. So even here we see that both of these energies are coming into a state of contentment, but also navigating some deep feelings of unpacking around what they've had to surrender or recognize that may have led them to the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine that are in the divine union frequency, this is that moment that is amplifying the fact that you've been in the frequency enough right now that you've seen that maturation process happening in the cycle of being in the divine union. And it is that moment that feels like a release process. It feels like you are letting go of things, because this is that moment of, again, looking at the divine union itself and saying, what feels like it serves our purposes now? What do we need to let go of? But even now, we see that one of the reasons that this is energetically occurring right now is almost that observation point, if you will, around recognizing the energy in the divine union frequency observes and understands that there's almost only so much energetically that they can do or take on. So what is the energy in the divine union frequency energetically doing right now? They're looking at things to a certain extent and saying, what feels like it is serving us? What feels like it is energetically helping us versus what feels like it is becoming no longer necessary. It's no longer serving us. And that ability of almost seeing something and recognizing that there is something that you may have felt that you needed when you first entered the divine union, that now you're almost like, oh, it feels like it's just too much of a burden right now. That is that gift that almost feels like that release process, because again, you are almost, I told you, I just keep getting this like sense of like, it feels like that metamorphosis energy in like surrendering and recognizing that the divine union itself has kind of gone through a process wherein where you were when you first entered the energy versus where you are now, it feels like it's a completely different, like ship of Theseus. It's like a completely different thing than you ever would have expected. And that in itself, though, is almost a benchmark of being in the energy, because that is the changes that you're recognizing that were happening as a result of being in the energy. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Justice card in its reversal and our Devil card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Eight of Pentacles in its reversal. A lot of conversations potentially in relationality to what may have effectively served the energy in the divine union at the time that you entered the divine union frequency versus where you find yourself now. That ability to ascertain is creating that sense of refinement, because that is that evolution energy that we're effectively seeing right now. And it's almost showing that is articulating to a certain degree that this is like looking at something and being like, we need to be more adaptable here. We're doing something in a way that like it no longer serves us the way that we feel like it does. That is a beautiful sign if you're experiencing that in the divine union energy, because that's that moment that almost amplifies like how much you've energetically or spiritually grown with another person. That's something that may have just like suited your purposes or your needs at the time of entering the frequency now feels like it's more problematic, right? It's like I told you, it's like the training wheel that you just need to like knock off the bike, if you will, because it's just like looking at something and saying like, this just feels excessive, right? So we see that there's a lot of this like energetic streamlining that's potentially occurring right now for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency, but all to make things easier going forward. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency. Remember how I told you that this feels like the amplification on like plans changing, coming into that point of adaptability? This is like having to like almost hurry up and make more immediate present adaptations to accommodate where you're potentially experiencing or finding yourself. Because for a lot of the energy right now, I just keep seeing that there's a little bit of this like surprise energy that's come into being here. Someone almost looking at something and being like, I didn't expect to find you. I didn't expect to find this. I didn't expect to feel this way. So when we experience moments like that, it almost creates like immediate tangible rectification, because those are those moments that like everything was hunky-dory, and then like suddenly you had this like energetic connection, and like your whole axis has like pivoted. And so even now there could be a lot of conversations that's occurring right now for the energy coming into divine union in, again, what you want to facilitate in a tangible way to make an even better divine union that is going to feel a lot like the energy that we just talked about coming into divine union in relationality to like coming into some tangible accommodations. I told you, a lot of plans being laid right now, a lot of changes. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now. This is that like heavy energy that we're effectively seeing right now, that's almost like, again, the release process in terms of feeling the connection to something, but also recognizing that it's not working, right? We can exist in two different spaces and places. We can identify and feel an energetic connection to someone that is very powerful, while also observing and experiencing that there's something that's fundamentally broken in relationality to that connection. A lot of this energy went through a lot of the process of trying to do everything that one could do in order to facilitate a point of healing. But a lot of the energy is almost recognizing right now, especially if these are circumstances or situations, that one person is trying to say over and over to someone, something here is not working. And another person is saying, everything is working fine. The fact that that in itself is the amplification on what is not working, because that is the moment of recognizing that if something feels like a bridge too far, it is indicative of the fact that you are on different bridges. So we see even now that for a lot of this, it feels like that energetic release process, because it's almost amplifying that feeling of feeling like someone potentially telling you like nothing is wrong. That doesn't indicate that something is not wrong. It's creating a space for some of the energy and separation to question themselves, but it is the recognition point that if someone does not feel like something is wrong and another person feels like something is wrong, that is because one person is very happy in what may feel like an incredibly imbalanced relationship to another individual. So even now, that ability of one person to observe the imbalance while the other person is trying to say, no, everything is fine, is almost amplifying right now energetically something that feels like someone being recognizing and saying, yeah, that's available to me, but it requires me to leave my own path to be able to continue forth in it, because that is the difference of recognizing and saying, yes, the person says nothing's wrong because it's exactly what that person wants versus what I seek, which is something different. So that is why we see that recognizing and understanding this right now doesn't feel like there's so much of that energetic forcing someone to change, especially if someone's saying there's nothing that's needed to change. Why are you making problems where problems don't exist? It's the observation of saying someone doesn't feel there isn't a problem because we want very different things. This is why that immediate gesture of healing kind of gets returned back to the sender, because that's that moment of saying, I need to heal from this. I need to heal from a connection with someone that does not want the same things that I want. I need to heal from a connection with someone who does not see the relationship for what I aspire to be. That their desire for a relationship and my desire for a relationship could be very different things. That doesn't mean I don't have care and empathy and love for that person, but observing that is the gift of allowing for healing to come in, because that's that moment of basically saying, I care about someone, but we want very different things, right? I'm not going to try to change them. I'm not trying to get them off my path. I'm just going to recognize that we are in very different places, and that in itself is what is facilitating a lot of this energetic healing right now. Potentially even energy encountering each other and articulating this on the way. Why am I saying that? Because we've got here, when I say potentially on the way, like even like this weekend, because we've got here, look at this, we've got Devil in its reverse, Knight of Wands in its reverse, and Ace of Pentacles. Protect me from what I want. This is the energetic equivalent of someone saying, protect me from what I want. Someone is doing a lot of this functional work right now, saying, I need to do something tangible to protect me from what I want, right? One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. right? Because what is basically happening right now for a lot of the energy that is in separation? The energy in separation, some of this energy has been in separation enough that you're building that sense of recognizing and understanding yourself in a point of solitude. So what happens when you move in a modality where you understand and recognize yourself from a point of solitude? You know yourself enough. So what is the energetically healed energy doing right now? Recognizing their own ability to sit with their own solitude. This is the energy in separation going, I know myself. I can't be left to my own devices. I can't be left. I can't be trusted with my own devices, because this is the energy basically saying, I know if I'm left in a point where I don't have something tangibly to do, it's going to be even harder not to go back to what isn't serving me. That is going to reverse some of this like commitment to the healing path that I have. So what is the energy right now in separation doing? You're putting these plans at play. You're putting yourself tangibly in spaces and places to avoid the solitude, but not, I have to say, this is not a bad avoiding of solitude. This is knowing your own solitary self enough that you recognize and you can anticipate how to you're using your wisdom here and saying, I recognize that if I leave myself in this space of just sitting here thinking about it, trying to heal, that's not what's going to facilitate the healing here. It's going to pull me back towards them. Instead, we see that a lot of this energy right now is giving themselves something to do, even forcing themselves forward, right? Doing what they know is best, even as because they're trying to avoid what they know isn't serving them. Masculine and feminine doing this work right now. Masculine is going to feel like protecting you from your own passion center, leading you back to a space that you're trying to facilitate healing on by not doing that. Feminine, you're doing that to avoid that same kind of energetic connection towards a masculine that you feel that passion connection for, but you recognize something is completely imbalanced. So both of these energies potentially, again, what are they doing? They're going out, they're forcing themselves forward, again, permitting and allowing that healing gesture to occur. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union. This is that energetic equivalent right now that feels like that deep perception shift that's potentially occurring right now from the stability of where you are presently. So seeing what happens when you're in that modality where you're finally receiving something that feels like it's an alignment to you. It's almost like creating that sense of that stability, that nourishment. It's starting to make you kind of see things from a different perspective. Now the healing begins. For masculine, this is going to feel like a lot of personal assessment of past self. Potentially even looking at spaces and places where you let your passion move you instead of your intentionality. For feminine, this is potentially going to have to be a lot of perception shifts on past connections with masculine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Masculine and feminine that are in the divine union frequency, this is that moment of, again, feeling the value of having been in the frequency together. You've changed. You've adapted, you've made each other better. The counterpart energies are healing one another, even at a moment, and assessing and almost taking this point to recognize how much you've changed is almost the gift and grace that you're giving each other by saying, look how much, look how different we've become versus who we were when we first entered the frequency. This is that gift of looking back at the past to be able to facilitate and say, how do we move forward from this point? So it almost feels like, again, this energetic moment that may feel a little bit more grounding for the energy in the divine union frequency, because again, this is taking a look at things to a certain extent and basically saying, what can we do to further improve the divine connection? What can we do to further heal? What can we do to further encourage that level or degree of healing? And some of that is almost requiring a little bit of energetic solitude. We've been seeing this card constantly this week, because that is that moment that almost says, again, what is it that you aspire for? What is it that you desire? Are those still the same things as when we first entered the divine union frequency? Having that objectivity and clarity is almost helping to facilitate, because this is built on the individual perception, showing something to someone with a higher, heightened level or degree of clarity. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ace of Pentacles, our Knight of Wands in its reversal, and our Sun card in its transverse. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our King of Wands in its reversal. This is really intriguing, because one of the things that we're seeing that is happening right now has to do, these two cards were actually here yesterday. The difference was that this card was in its upright yesterday. So this is a lot of energetic, I have to say, there's a bit of energetic heaviness that's potentially coming in right now in relationality to masculine energy. And I want to say that this feels like an amplification of the practical, like the practical coming in towards the aspirational is what I'm really seeing. And I told you, like, this is the gift that the energy of the divine union is almost like energetically putting forth to a certain degree, right? Because the energy in the divine union frequency is not basically like energetically just putting on rose-colored glasses all the time, right? It's not just assuming the best and expecting the best to occur. No, the energy in the divine union frequency is doing that difficult work in trying to move forward manifestation goals, but with a lot of level or degree or potential to practicality. So effectively, one of the things that we're seeing right now for a lot of the masculine energy is one of the things that we see that may be happening for some of that energy in the divine union frequency right now is a lot of concentration on practical spaces. There may be a lot of practical discussions potentially coming through right now, because that is effectively, again, being able, having a dream is good. Having a plan is better, is almost like what we're seeing here. So I feel like there may be something that feels like some hard conversations that may be occurring right now in some of the energetic spaces in relationality to masculine and feminine, where masculine may be almost taking more of that like practical approach, if you will, but doing so not for the sake of potentially wanting to like diminish the feminine's own aspirations, but so much so to be able to make sure that the feminine is bringing forth that practical element, looking at things from a practical way. Feminine, you may also be experiencing this right now if you're in the divine union frequency, because one of the things that we're effectively seeing right now, which is interesting, these energies are giving this forth to each other. So both energies right now are looking at things from a practical perspective. But is that practical perspective meant to diminish the other energetic connection? It is not. It is trying to anticipate problems before they energetically occur. So we see here, even now, for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency, this is what I feel like is best amplified by what may feel like difficult conversations. Taking the mutual aspirational goals and being able to say, are they reasonable? Are they rational? What is potentially standing in the way of being able to make effectively like navigate forth on them? To be able to really, I keep seeing that desire or need to bring the long-term manifestation goal into the present is requiring a little bit more tangibility here. I told you, this is the difference of the feminine wanting to move more slowly as opposed to the masculine wanting to rush forth. Almost observing what those limitations are right now and being able to put practical understanding on them is what is facilitating productivity, even if it's creating a difficult conversation. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now. This is that weight and heaviness of grounding that potentially comes forth in circumstances or situations, because even masculine right now, one of the challenges that we see for a lot of the energy experiencing or coming into divine union right now is what one does in a moment of understanding of self. What does one engage on? How does one move forward? And we see even now, one of the things that we see, and we have to just describe, we're just gonna like rip the band-aid on this to a certain extent, masculine. Some of the masculine energy coming into divine union, you have this moment that feels like it really does test your own intentionality versus your own desire. Because that ability of understanding, suddenly seeing and recognizing and understanding what you need to put forward, will immediately remind you of all the spaces and places from the past where you wish you'd understood. So even now, for a lot of the masculine energy, this can sometimes create a moment of energetic questioning in where you presently are. Because that's that moment of saying, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? Should I do that? But recognizing and understanding the difference in the wisdom of moving with intentionality, moving into that space of going, should I do that, is almost that moment that you see what you're doing there. You see how you're letting that passion matrix start to push you forward, right? You're slipping. You're potentially energetically slipping on yourself. Even that, we effectively see that the masculine energy in this modality is recognizing and saying, I'm slipping back into it. If I start moving again where my desire lead with my understanding, I caught myself. This is the masculine energy learning how to have that intentionality over their passion center in all things, even in those moments when they start to today build those like what if self-doubt scenarios and looking in the past and being like, yo, hey, you're doing it again. Like you're doing it again. Like it's one of those kind of moments, as it were, for some of the masculine energy experiencing this right now. So if you're feeling some of that conflict energy right now, masculine, that's totally natural to feel. Feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency right now. This could be that moment that is built on the amplification of feeling and recognizing masculine energy that sometimes does not have that ability, right? What happens with a lot of the feminine energy right now? Feminine energy is moving forth into the divine union frequency. And the feminine energy, even at this time, especially if this is feminine energy that is just coming into divine union with the masculine, there is still a lot of trust that needs to be built here, right? Feminine energy, even feeling the full weight of a masculine and not necessarily fully trusting that energy, but doing everything they can to try to stay stable and level at that time. But what is the feminine energy doing right now that's giving the feminine energy? What is the masculine energy right now doing that is helping the feminine energy even through their own anxieties and doubts and fears? Tangibly committing, tangibly committing, tangibly committing, tangibly committing. Continuing to put that energetic equivalent there. This is the feminine energy that's feeling that security, because even when the feminine feels those doubts and fears, feminine is grounding themselves and seeing all the tangible expressions. This is the masculine that's not just saying how they feel to the feminine. This is the masculine that's constantly energetically putting forth to a feminine. And this is the feminine feeling that anxiety and caution that things could always change, but also, again, not letting that anxiety and fear overrun what they see is practically occurring. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation. What we are effectively identifying right now is that moment that feels like that point. Can you see here? The problem with the feminine energy right now is that the weight of the healing experience that they're going through right now with a certain masculine energy, especially if this is a healing gesture of moving away from something that they feel like the masculine, the desire matrix is there, but it never grew out beyond that passion center. This is feminine energy that feels like they're going forward right now, but they're feeling a lot of cynicism towards the masculine energy that they may be encountering forward right now, because they're still at the heart of trying to heal from this past connection. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. So this is the feminine energy, potentially, I told you, moving forward on some plans right now and feeling, even as they're laying plans forward for themselves, feeling very skeptical, feeling very, I want to say, ambivalent about those plans, because it's not necessarily plans or gestures that the feminine has their full heart invested in. It's almost that moment or modality, the feminine saying, I'm doing what I know I need to do versus what I really want to do, because what I want to do isn't creating a space or place of balance for me. So we see even now, this is the feminine energy, like feeling like kind of like gray, like dishwater, making plans right now and being like, not necessarily feeling like their heart's in it. But again, if you're a feminine energy going through this right now, like that's completely natural. Because look at how much of this healing you're going through, like this giant, like deep, like energetic, like this is like a mourning period, you know, like you want to like put on like your mourning robes and go out, but instead you're doing everything you can to try to put like a brave face on something. Well, if it's any consolation, my dears, you got a bunch of masculine energy that's doing the exact same thing right now. What's the masculine energy doing right now? The masculine energy is doing anything, if they're on this healing gesture, to avoid going back to a situation or circumstance that they know they may feel a lot of desire towards, but they recognize and identify and is available to them, but they recognize and identify isn't what's best for them or for the individual in question. This is masculine energy also on a very healing journey that's also feeling terrible right now, that also doesn't feel invested in anything that they want to move forward in right now. But what are they doing? They're putting that brave face forward. And they're also committing their energy and just saying, I gotta do this. I have to go forward in this direction. This is that work of that deep energetic healing that's effectively occurring around some circumstances and situations right now. Continuing to get clarification. And if it's hard, it probably means you're moving in the right direction, because it means that you're healing. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 10 of Swords and our 8 of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Knight of Cups in its reversal. What are we seeing here? So we're seeing that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this is why this feels so like difficult for the masculine energy, because the masculine energy, even going through this right now, is what we're effectively seeing is feeling like their heart isn't in it, right? If this is a masculine that just had to go through this process of healing where they're recognizing and they're feeling an energetic connection to a feminine, but they're seeing that that feminine doesn't really come into full acceptance of the masculine, of a masculine coming into a better understanding of self that led to like a separation event, and now seeing a feminine that's trying to change or contort themselves too much to be in alignment with the masculine. This is a masculine moving forward from this point and feeling like, I really don't want to do this, but I don't have a choice, right? This is that feeling of the masculine doing what they know is the right thing as opposed to what they feel is the easy thing. So even now we see that for a lot of the masculine energy, even though you may be putting some of that tangible effort in to situations and circumstances right now, like almost like forcing yourself forward, if you will, it's not that you really like, you almost feel like you're questioning yourself at the same time. Why? Because we see energetically here that this is a part of that deeper healing that's occurring for the masculine energy in this way. Because again, you're doing the right thing, but you're also feeling like in a way you're like controlling your passion center from leading you back into a space that you know is unhealed, but it's not easy. It's energetically hard, and you're feeling very emotional about it at the same time. So we almost see to a certain extent right now for a lot of the masculine energy experiencing this is almost like trying to like, you know, you're forcing yourself forward, if you will, right? And leaving yourself like a lot of this energetic expression right now of masculine in a point of emotional overwhelm. So we'll also stress right now, if you have any issues related to unhealthy coping mechanisms, I want you to be very careful about them, okay? I'm just going to say that because this is a lot of that energetic overwhelm. So being able to make sure that you're moving in a space or place of communicating how you're feeling instead of letting those feelings like guide your actions into unhealthy spaces or places, that may be very important right now. Now, masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the feminine energy is also going through some kind of process here that we're also observing, specifically for the feminine energy that is going through a lot of this work right now. For the feminine energy that is also feeling this is why we see that a lot of the feminine energy that's moving forward in this way is doing that to a certain extent. And again, feeling that necessity of overwhelm as they do so, because we're seeing here that for a lot of the feminine energy that's effectively experiencing this is that feeling that's amplifying that while they may be feeling an energetic connection to a masculine that may be based on the passion center, this is the affirmation of the feminine saying that they feel that the lack of the emotional connection, the giving forth, if you will, is what is necessitating this direction. Because this is a feminine energy that's able to assess and understand and say, do I feel an energetic connection to a masculine? Do I feel a passionate pull to a masculine? Yes. Is that masculine energy showing an ability to like put forth care, empathy, understanding? Are they working in a space or place of being attentive to the fact that I have emotional needs that need to be fulfilled? Making sure that I'm energetically or emotionally all right. Is this an energy that has been asking these things of me even now? This is the feminine energy that's almost reminding themselves to a certain extent. And if that's a big no, then this is the feminine energy going, I can't go back towards that space or place, because this isn't a feminine energy that wants to end a connection. This is a feminine energy that hasn't seen that energetic emotional connection from the masculine develop in such a way that it feels like it creates a safe space for a feminine. So for the feminine energy, this is almost that moment that feels like a grieving process, because feminine almost feels like they could imagine what that would have looked like. They could imagine that scenario where that masculine was able to emotionally connect in this way. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, that observation point of the feminine saying like, I mourn. And this is almost the feminine energy. I have to say, this is what's so painful for some of the feminine energy experiencing this. I mourn for someone that I hoped would arrive in that person, but I never saw evidence of. This is almost the feminine energy mourning the dream of who they aspired or who they hoped that person would move into energetically, because that's the feminine energy almost saying, that is the feminine energy saying that person was an illusion. That was an illusion that I created of myself, of who someone was versus who they were showing me to be. And so that moment of accepting that is the moment of feminine being able to come into a deeper sense of healing with the feminine, because that's not feminine saying, oh, maybe there's some kind of hidden, soft, gentle side of a masculine that I just need to like dig up. This is a feminine saying that is me putting that other sense of a person on somewhere that they never showed any indication of possessing. So for the feminine that's going through this, even now, this process, I told you, this is the healing that's coming through right now. Missing someone who was never there. For masculine energy that is coming through on this right now, this is the masculine energy going through a process where, again, if you are in that moment of healing, this is potentially that feeling of observing, especially if there was a point where you felt like a rejection event occurred due to you trying to being open and honest with the feminine. And instead that created a space or place of a feminine that either rejected you or then tried to come back to you and say that they were okay with something that they were clearly not okay with. This is the masculine energy feeling that sense of like anxiety and being emotionally open going forward. But this is, again, the masculine energy being on that deep healing journey and saying to themselves effectively, I can't close my heart space at this time. I need to recognize and identify that the error there wasn't necessarily me being open and honest with someone. It was that we weren't in alignment. So how else am I going to find alignment if I do not lead with that openness and with that clarity? So even now we see that there may be something that feels like a little bit of emotional overwhelm with masculine as you navigate these spaces or places, because this is hard. Like, it's hard to emotionally open up. And this is almost, again, potentially recovering from a space or place that you feel like you being open or your most authentic expression of self led to a feeling of separation. But that is almost that reminder of remembering that if you being open and honest led to separation, that's not because that's a rejection of yourself. It's because that wasn't alignment, right? It just wasn't aligned, and that's okay. We can find recognizing the difference between rejection and a lack of alignment is incredibly important. Masculine and feminine energy right now that's coming into divine union. Even now, we're seeing that a lot of this emotional overwhelm that's potentially happening to some of the masculine energy coming into divine union right now. Don't let this fall you back into separation right now, masculine. Please don't let this drop you back into separation, because what we're effectively identifying is that that more moment of recognizing that your own perception shift is one that it feels like it's more personally devastating, because it's almost that moment that you're looking back on past situations and you're recognizing, had you learned these lessons then, had you learned these things about yourself now, that if you known them then what you know now, there could have been something different that occurred. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy navigating this right now, this can feel like a lot of energy of trauma or carrying trauma. But again, making sure that you don't hold yourself overly accountable for that past version of self. Hold space for that. Recognize that we do the best that we can at times that we find ourselves in. It's heavy work, but it also is where we start healing. Feminine energy in this modality as well. This is that moment that also feels somewhat overwhelming, because I can almost see a certain extent for a lot of the feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This is the first time you're giving yourself space to mourn something from the past, because this is that moment that you've come into divine union and is potentially hearkening back to some space or place or individual that you had hoped to achieve or move into that with. And it's now that feels like some kind of renewal of the mourning process that you're now recognizing, because not only are you mourning the fact that that didn't occur with a particular individual, but also the fact that you can see it, you can understand why with new eyes. Masculine and feminine energy in the heart of the divine union right now. This ability to change, this ability to come into a space of seeing that you are no longer the same energy that you first entered the divine union. It can feel a little devastating, but it also allows for a lot of ability for transformation, because that recognition point is almost helping to facilitate a lot of this work on changes. And so even now we see a lot of the masculine energy right now. It's really important that you don't let yourself get energetically overwhelmed at this time. Because one of the things that we're effectively seeing that is potentially occurring right now for a lot of the masculine energy today is, again, such a heavy focus on the practical that it almost feels a little bit energetically overwhelming, right? This is almost a masculine energy right now that is feeling some present frustration in the present, some energy in the present in what you feel like you can't necessarily change and navigate your own self, through your own self, that may be taking overly accountability on yourself in order to facilitate and fix. For feminine energy right now, a lot of work can be spent right now in giving masculine a lot of this energetic support right now, because this is masculine that's almost taking on some kind of lion's share of accountability here that needs to be just kind of modified or cared for, if you will. Feminine, the feminine energy in this modality right now, I need to stress, because we haven't seen a lot of the feminine energy here beyond the fact that a lot of this feels very much like the feminine energy has to do a lot of work in supporting the masculine today. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. And the way I'll best express that is because feminine energy has better ability to navigate some kind of energetic overwhelm is what I'm effectively seeing here. So being able to help the masculine through this to a certain extent is almost again, what I'm feeling is the equivalent of kind of saying to the masculine, it's okay to communicate those doubts. It's okay to communicate those fears. It's okay to be able to work through those moments, because doing so allows for those productive movements into what feels like it's going to be most energetically practical going forward, right? So this is a lot of that work that we see right now that could feel like a lot of heavy conversation, but one that is leading to some kind of unburdening right? Like that unburdening moment of being able to say like, okay, like let's do what we have to do here. Let's make those adjustments. Let's make those modifications. Let's have that hot, like those hard conversations, because that's that moment of saying it's not your responsibility to carry that burden. And what we almost see here for some of the masculine energy is this is almost feeling like that energetic equivalent of like admitting to the feminine your deeper anxieties, your deeper fears, to be able to have that type of energetic support. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 10 of Swords in combination with our Hermit card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our 9 of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency right now. This is effectively what we're seeing. This is why we've been talking about a lot of this work that we're seeing that's happening right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency. Is that recognition point that feels, I have to say, this is a lot of pragmatism that's coming into some situations and circumstances, right? It's almost like requiring this. And even now we're seeing here, like that ability to have a hard conversation is the value point of the energy in the divine union, because that's that moment that almost feels like that amplification of, again, the difference between like, creating a false positive space or place versus having what feels like a difficult conversation. So we see even now for the energy in the divine union frequency, being able to navigate spaces and places to say like, let's encounter, let's discuss what is difficult. Let's talk about those hard things, because being able to discuss those hard things is how we can end something being difficult, right? Confronting something that is problematic, putting it out in the air, being able to articulate that, being able to like express it, allows for a point of clarity. So even now we see, I keep seeing the energy in the divine union frequencies basically saying to themselves, we're not going to like put a blind eye to something, because that blind eye is like, that's like creating a sense of like false reality, as opposed to like truly facing what needs to be faced or encountered. So we see even now for a lot of the energy in this frequency, that feels like a lot of heart path work, but it's also allowing for a level or degree of productivity. Masculine and feminine energy that's coming into the divine union right now, what we're effectively seeing, that observation point in anything that was required that brought you here, that got you into that space or place, that is that insight, that is that clarity. And again, if you're feeling that moment that feels somewhat overwhelming, even as things are going really productively, that's because you're finally entering that point of like the grieving process in terms of seeing things from a new perspective. It's only when you see something from a new perspective can you recognize what you couldn't see in the past. So that ability here, it feels sometimes energetically overwhelming. But at the same time, there's a word for that. We call that wisdom, right? So a lot of this feels like this energetic like moment of coming into like this heightened sense of wisdom and understanding on a lot of past path work that may have led to this point. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this modality that we're effectively seeing here, it feels like the amplification, if you will, of the wisdom that you're bringing forth into some situations and circumstances. Because again, recognizing, feeling the weight of something that is available to you, wanting to like, not like recognizing the desire and the need and saying like, I want that, I need that, but saying it's not good for me, I'm going to choose not to go forward towards that, is wisdom, right? That is wisdom. That is the healing gesture of wisdom. So for a lot of the energy right now, observing and saying to oneself, of course I feel that need to go back to something, but I'm not expressing on that need, is that moment that feels like that movement of coming into better understanding of oneself, because that doesn't say to oneself, oh, I don't go towards those things because I don't desire them. It's having that moment of saying, I move with intentionality towards what I know is best for me. So even now we see that this is that moment that almost feels like a lot of energy and separation, coming into some deep energetic spiritual alignment and recognition of their own self, even moving forward in this way. And in a way, I have to say, doing that double path work of saying to themselves, I'm not going back there. And in fact, I'm going to commit myself to things forward to prevent me from having the moment in solitude where I may feel more I may feel even more invested in going back to that thing. This is almost that energy saying, I know myself. This is the energy learning about themselves right now and doing a lot of that healthy work. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Hermit card and our King of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Wands. It's hard, I know. It's difficult work. It's difficult work, but here's the thing about it, and this is the beauty of it right now, which is a lot of the feminine energy in this modality, feeling that energetic expression, if you will, that it can only be most amplified in the articulation point and saying, just because it's hard doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing, right? Because this is almost that amplification right now in saying to oneself that the whole, one of the reasons or one of the issues around something here has to do not with the fact that you don't feel some kind of passionate connection with an energy here. This is feminine energy that's moving forward in this healing space and seeing and recognizing and feeling that almost acknowledging and saying, yes, I am energetically feel a passion-like connection to someone I'm moving away from right now, even in separation. But recognizing and asking oneself, does it feel like it's a space or place of healing, or is the passion connection actually feel like it is creating what is unhealed in me? If it's only facilitating what feels like an unhealed connection, this is what's allowing a lot of the feminine energy right now to effectively push away from that and basically say, I can see now that my energetic connection to someone that might just be built on the unhealed passion center is something that it's not going to potentially go away. It's just something that I have to energetically fight myself on, because that's that moment of basically, again, leaving space for the energetic passion connection that you may feel for someone, but almost saying to oneself, what feels like it allows for that healing in? What allows for that productivity? So even now we see that a lot of the energetic healing is almost going through in this way, specifically for the sake of saying, I know I'm doing the right thing. And what's beautiful about a lot of the feminine energy that is doing this, they're not just doing it for the sake of their own self. They're doing it for the sake of the masculine that they feel that they share that connection with, saying, I want better for them too. I want them to heal. I want them to recognize that the connection does not just need to stay focused around the passion center. This is literally the energy of the feminine saying, I am pushing back against the connection I feel with masculine that is unhealed, for the hope and ascertaining and recognition point of doing this for their own self as well. Masculine in separation, this is you coming into a space or place of, again, overcoming anything that you feel is leading you into passion centers that you don't feel is facilitating a healing gesture. So masculine, if you're feeling a connection to a feminine, but again, it doesn't feel like you're in alignment, if you don't feel like you're on the same path with that feminine, or you feel like that feminine energy, or you're seeing the feminine that's trying to change or accommodate or contort too much to be with you, this is the masculine energy fighting back against their own passion center, basically saying in that moment, it's hard. I need to get over my own sense of desire because I need to move forward with intentionality. And even now we see that the masculine energy at that point of healing is learning that ability, that beautiful ability to overcome their own passion center, to not let it basically move them into spaces or places that they don't feel not only isn't best for them, but isn't creating a positive energetic connection. So this is the masculine healing their own self through preventing and protecting others from their own ability to move forward in that way. So even now we see that a lot of the masculine energy feeling a little bit of like frustration as you move forward with a lot of intentionality. But what's beautiful about this for the masculine energy is this is that choice that you're making that says like, I am trying to do what I know is right versus what I know is easy and available to me. Because this is the masculine that's moving forward from a healing center with a lot of intentionality in relation to experiencing that passion drive, but also saying, I can overcome that. I don't want to be someone who just follows my desires to the hilt, because that doesn't create an enriched experience. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Nine of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Pentacles. Masculine and feminine energy in separation. What did I just tell you these energies were doing in separation? We've got two energetic signatures of energy that is healing. Masculine, almost overcoming their own passion center, saying to themselves, I know that someone is available towards me right now, but not under these circumstances. That what I aspire for and what they desire are two different places and spaces, and I don't want to drag someone onto my path work that I know would lead them off of theirs. That's the masculine in the healing gesture right now. Feminine in the healing gesture saying, I feel a passionate connection towards a masculine right now, but it's only driven from the passion center. It's only coming from someone articulating their need, their desire for me, versus saying what they can give, seeing me as an oasis instead of a garden. Feminine saying, I recognize I can still feel that need for that energetic connection, but I'm pushing against it because it does not facilitate the environment that I want to cultivate in a relationship. Both of these energies begrudgingly dragging themselves out, saying, I need to put some energy forth here. I need to put myself somewhere where I know that I'm not going to feel that temptation to go back to something that I know it doesn't necessarily serve me. What is happening in that modality? New energetic connections. These energies finding each other at a moment that they feel like they have nothing to offer, and finding each other, finding and being able to offer each other exactly what the other needs right now on their healing journey. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now. This is that moment that is amplifying anything that was not working or was not serving to you prior to the point of coming into divine union right now. It's going to feel more energetically overwhelming for a lot of the masculine energy that moves into this modality, because every part that you're seeing here almost feels like the lesson that you wish you could bring forth to the past, your own past self. So even now, this is almost creating a state of like deep energetic heaviness for masculine, because that recognition of finding yourself is something that you almost wish you could bring forth or bring past towards the places and spaces that you look back on the younger self and say, I wish I'd known then. But that ability right now is almost, again, that beautiful moment that masculine is learning, which is, again, what is that state of grace? The state of grace is saying, I am very happy. I'm very happy with where I am now. I'm very happy with where I am now. But I can also hold space to mourn the fact that I wish I hadn't had to go on the journey that it took to find what I have now here. Right? That's the masculine energy navigating those two spaces of saying, I wish I knew then what I knew now, but I'm also very happy to be here. Right? So for some of the masculine energy, I'm going to tell you right now, there's some potentiality of falling back into separation because you get too overwhelmed on one of those feelings as opposed to the other. Making sure that you maintain that point of gratitude in the present, recognizing that the present is what brought you forth, is effectively energetically what helps to a certain extent in terms of amplifying how you move forward from here. Masculine and feminine energy. Feminine energy that's coming into divine union, you're experiencing the same modality. And we see even now for a lot of the feminine energy, there's some kind of amplification of potential anxiety here, because a lot of this like clarification or observation of the past is almost reinforcing your feeling of the present. And even now there's some kind of anxiety about the masculine staying consistent in this way. But what is the feminine seeing that is reinforcing or re-encouraging the feminine that's in this modality? A masculine that shows up time and time and time again, right? That's the masculine that is showing the consistency of effort, giving forth to the feminine, that's helping the feminine get better understanding of the past experiences. Masculine and feminine energy that are in the divine union, in the heart of the divine union frequency. One of the things that we're energetically seeing at this time is this point of recognition, as it were. It's this moment that is ascertaining and helping you identify that being in the divine union itself has energetically changed you. It's something that like you is not avoidable. And one of the things that's very intriguing right now for a lot of the energy that is identifying right now in the divine union frequency has a lot to do with energetic bandwidth. And we see even now, one of the frustration points that's potentially happening for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency is ascertaining or recognizing that there's only so much energy that you have in circumstances and situations right now, which is why we see a lot of this like energetic refinement, if you will, a lot of this like working right now in terms of looking at the partnership itself and ascertaining and asking oneself what feels like it is serving as a prioritization point in the connection versus what feels like it's not, is almost again that like that easement point that is allowing for productivity. It's allowing for new energetic opportunities to come in. So this is like the gift that keeps giving, because as new opportunities come forth, you have to ascertain and understand what needs to be relinquished and to be able to like navigate appropriate bandwidth energetically. So we see even now, this is the energy in the divine union working through with a little bit of fastidiousness on what they feel like is like what is working to leave room for more of the positive to come in, right? Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now between our Nine of Cups in its reversal and our Seven of Wands. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Swords. So for masculine and feminine energy right now that are in separation, one of the beautiful things that we're effectively right now is, I told you, this feeling, this like moment that may feel like this like energetic like overwhelm or this emotional overwhelm is creating, right? This is the channeling of the overwhelm into a sense of renewed vitality for both masculine and feminine energy, because that's that moment of feeling the overwhelm and saying to oneself, I'm not doing this because it's easy. I'm doing it because it's hard. I'm doing this because it's the right thing. I'm feeling these things. It doesn't mean I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm feeling this energy here, and I know I'm doing the right thing. That moment, being able to take that is like turning your own engine back on, because that's that moment of saying, I am fighting for what I know is right. For the feminine energy, this is the feminine saying, I'm fighting for that balanced relationship. I'm fighting for that balanced partnership. I'm trying to save the masculine energy that's coming towards me in this way from themselves, from the inherently unhappy partnership I know would evolve if I allowed that desire base to only serve as the foundation of the connection. This is the feminine saying, I am fighting on behalf of that energy, even if they don't recognize it. I'm fighting tooth and nail. That is that feminine energy that is almost feeling that sense of empowerment, because that's the feminine energy that, again, you remember I said that desire, that energy of the hope of the masculine that the feminine feels like they were burying here. The feminine is going, no, I'm not doing that. This is the only way they come to life. The only way, that energy of what I hope to aspire for that person, that energetic connection, what I thought, what I dreamed for that person, the only way that can come into being is if I show them that this cannot be. if I show them. And that's why we see even now for the feminine energy, being able to do that, that amplification point for the feminine says, I'm doing this for them because they deserved better, because we deserved better. And hopefully if I do this, that is paving the way for someday that connection potentially to be there. But that's the feminine saying, I need to be the person to draw that line, right? Masculine, doing the same thing. Masculine, feeling that energetic upheaval in separation, saying, I want to go towards that person, but it would be too hard. It would change them. It would create it would create a terrible partnership. They would be miserable every day. I would be miserable seeing them miserable. This is not in alignment. This is masculine going, I am not abandoning the hope that we might be able to find partnership together someday. This is masculine saying, I am going to fight for what I know is in alignment with that hope and aspiration that either one day that person may find me again and be willing to be ready to meet me in alignment, or that someone else will be there instead. And these energies right now, look at them. We've got these two energies here, both ready to do that. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. Even now, that overwhelm point, that recognition, that understanding that is coming forth, that is giving you so much insight in relationality to what you could have brought forth in past connections, but also recognizing and appreciating your own perspective has shifted to such a degree now that it helps you see things with a better sense of optics. That clarity, what is it doing for the energy that's staying in the divine union frequency? Is it pulling you out? Is this making you go knock on doors being like, hey, I just learned something because I was in partnership with someone and I just found myself. So now I'm going to leave that energy that I just found divine union with to tell you that I'd like, is it doing that? No. The energy that's in the divine union frequency is saying, you brought this out in me. You brought this out in me. Right? That is why the energy stays in that moment. Because that moment is saying a lot of stuff before I didn't know, but they also couldn't do it. I didn't know, but they also couldn't do it. And so even now we see that point of affirming, looking back, having that perception shift, it doesn't take these energies out of alignment, because it's that moment saying, I didn't know, but they couldn't do it. You inspired this in me. You brought this out in me. That gift of gratitude saying you are the one that brought this forth in me is that energetic equivalent that allows for these energies to say, I can observe the past and hold weight and heaviness and grief for it. But at the same time, that builds the bond between us because we both experience and observe that has occurred. These are not energies that pretend that nothing has had any meaning prior to the moment of encountering one another. These are energies that appreciate the journey that has led the energy to finding themselves and the intentional choice they make every day to continue to share in that journey together. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, the challenging points here that we're effectively seeing has to do with how you move forward at this time. Because even now we see that this is an energetic equivalent that has changed the energy that is within it. Masculine and feminine. Feminine has become a lot more, look at the confidence that the feminine has picked up right now from the masculine. The masculine feeling that further confirmation, that further sense of resilience, that further sense of confidence in what they're building with the feminine. Both of these energies almost again feeling renewed, revitalized within the connection because they're constantly finding themselves within it. And that is what's amplifying an ability to be able to, again, look at the lightness of the page energy. We're not looking here at the king energy. This is the lightening of the burdens, if you will, by almost saying to themselves, how do we make sure that we don't move into a space of stagnancy? What do we do to keep that vitality, if you will? So even now we see a lot of that energy here in the divine union, having that hard work, but almost like moving through, like I told you, cutting away at what isn't necessary to find the inherent heart of what is. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now, I mean, not bottom of the deck, final card for today. This is beautiful. Look at our Queen of Pentacles here. Masculine and feminine energy that is in the divine union frequency. This modality that we're effectively seeing right now, this is that sense. And even now, what's really beautiful about this is feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This is feeling that level and degree of stability. And this is something that the feminine energy is able to generate within their own self. This is feminine energy coming into that state or space of being able to feel, creating that that heart space, creating that stabilization point. How is the feminine energy doing this right now? This is the feminine energy that's also adaptable. This is a feminine energy right now that is in the divine union frequency, that is adaptable. They're ready. They're like almost like, this is like the queen that could like pick up a sword at any moment, because this is the feminine energy that is almost showing that ability to be flexible, even as they're creating that like state or space of stability, right? That's the gift that the masculine is bringing forth in the feminine. Masculine is feeling their own sense of vitality and being able to present new opportunities, new ideas, new possibilities to the feminine energy, knowing that the feminine energy is in that modality of feeling both confident and flexible. So we see even now that that's that energy that we see that is helping the energy have a lot of these difficult conversations, because it's allowing for that fluidity and that adaptability. Masculine and feminine energy that are coming into the divine union frequency, this modality that we're effectively identifying is that moment that, again, masculine, you may be recognizing, you're looking at the past self, you're looking at the present self, but then you're almost remembering and recalling the fact that anything that you're finding yourself at this point wasn't just because of your own legs. It's because the energy of the feminine right now is almost creating this ability to come into a deeper sense of understanding. So even now we see that that's the masculine energy moving deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. And feminine, seeing and experiencing a masculine that is flexible, that is adaptable, but is always continually making that intentional choice back towards you. That is what is affirming a lot of the feminine energy and building that sense of flexibility, because this is a feminine energy that feels confident that a masculine is going to continue to make that choice, right? That is the ability of the feminine to feel more secure. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, this is the feminine energy feeling stable in their choice, because this is the feminine energy that, again, doesn't feel, if they're moving away from a masculine that's only coming towards them from a passion center, from that point of saying, I need you, I want you, instead of saying, like, I want to give towards you. This is feminine energy that's accepting new possibilities, but they're not abandoning the past version of masculine on the way. This is feminine energy almost saying, like, energetically, the door is open here. But this is the feminine basically saying, I am always holding forth to the possibility of change without leaving myself stagnant, waiting for something that may never happen. Masculine, you're doing the same thing right now, in the modality of utilizing your own power of like controlling your passion center, hoping that if a feminine energy is able to find that stability for themselves, you may potentially have your paths cross at some point in the future. Both of these energies potentially making a new energetic connection along the way. Bottom of the deck on this reading today is 8 of Swords in its reversal. It's a lot of like free bird energy today. I have to stress, it's like that energy, it's that energetic equivalent, I want to say, of like, letting yourself, like, I see here, this is, because one of the things we're seeing with a lot of this is like looking at things with a lot of clarity. And when we move in that space of a lot of clarity, sometimes it can be hard, because it's almost like that point, like, it feels like the energetic equivalent of like, having those like that like epiphany moment of like looking around being like, oh, like that sense of understanding. It can feel very raw and vulnerable. A lot of the energy right now, especially the energy in separation, may be going through a lot of processes right now that may feel a little bit spiritually or energetically overwhelming, as it were. because again, you're not letting yourself live in that space of illusion. And so for a lot of these energies right now, having like to accept that the truth, the reality of circumstances or situations, it feels like it may be overwhelming, but it also feels like, it's that moment of like acceptance that sometimes can feel like a little bit of like that, like harsh reality coming in. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, that ability to ascertain and see something from the past with that clarity point, it almost creates that space or place for a minute of feeling like you can move in any direction. But that's why even now your choice to turn towards each other in that moment is so vital and important. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, in the divine union frequency, having those hard discussions, having those like hard, eye-opening discussions, if you will, right now, it's hard because I told you a lot of this work that we're seeing that's happening right now in the frequency is almost showing each other, one another's energetic blind spots, if you will. And when we're navigating into that point of seeing each other's blind spots, it can be a little difficult and triggering. But again, recognizing the gift of someone doing that, not in a way to like hurt us, but in a way to help us, like really trying to like facilitate our own growth, like that is something that is vital and important here. Matt, that is our daily collective read for today. I'd like to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again tomorrow.